Hello and welcome to a new live stream, episode 8 now, I believe, episode 8 of our live stream. Thank you for joining our live stream today. Thank you to everybody who has decided to join us. Last week, unfortunately, I was not very well, so I had a bit of a cold, seasonal, nothing COVID related, so now I feel much better, and for those that are following me on YouTube, you'll see that at the moment I'm doing quite a bit of exercise, walking every day, trying to get fit and healthy, lose a bit of the COVID belly and the COVID face, I guess, and get myself back to normal. But unfortunately last week I was not so well. I had a bit of a cold and I had to just try and persevere, but unfortunately we missed our weekly live stream, so apologies to everyone. And we have Anas Adelby. Hello, Anas. Nice for you to join us. Thank you ever so much for joining. Any questions you have, please feel free to put in the chat. I'll be happy to share your questions for everybody else and then answer any questions. And hopefully my answer is suitably logical and that sort of thing. So that's what we're going to do today. Also, another thing that we're going to be doing today is we're going to be reviewing websites that I use to source IELTS based material. At the moment, I'm currently teaching a lot of IELTS preparation classes. There's an exam coming up in December in most countries, I believe, and many students are preparing last minute for some of them to pass their IELTS. So that's what I'm going to be looking at. And if you've got any questions about IELTS, online teaching, anything that you want me to cover, then please feel free to put in the chat. We've also got Yasmina, so let's get these chats up in our on screen. So we have Anas here who says hello Martin, so hello, welcome back. Thank you ever so much for joining. We have Yasmina here, so welcome Yasmina, Ahmed Yasmina. So thank you ever so much for joining. We've got Eric. Eric's here. Hello, Eric. I hope you're well. Sorry, Eric, I didn't watch your live stream yesterday. I was teaching online, and then I had to meet a few friends and what have you. But there we are. So any chats, anything that you want me to look at, feel free to let me know, and I'll be happy to cover that. So that's what we're going to do. And then I've got a poem. Let me go back to our main screen so you can see me a bit closer. So I've got a poetry book here by Yeats, and I'm going to choose a poem to read at the end of it. So that's what we're going to do, and let's see how things go. But welcome everyone. Let's crack on. So as I was saying, at the moment, I'm currently teaching a lot of IELTS preparation classes. A lot of students want to take the IELTS so that they can study at a UK university or an English-speaking university, and they need to achieve a certain level, a certain grade. And one of my most recent students who took their IELTS exams, let's see, what did he get? He got a very, very respectable score. Most students try and aim for a 6. That's the golden ticket to get into a good UK university, and abroad as well. So one of my students got more than a 6, I believe, but let me just check. I'm just going to have a look and see what he said to me. There we are. I won't share this with everyone, but He says, what did he get? He got listening 7.5, reading 8, writing 7, speaking 6.5, overall score 7.5. So I was really pleased for him that he got a 7.5, which is a huge achievement. And, obviously I can't give him, I can't take all that. He done all the hard work. He persevered. He focused heavily on writing and speaking. Those were the areas that he found which were the weakest, and of course he got slightly lower in those parts, but everything else, the passive skills, I suppose we'll say, the listening and the reading, he achieved highly respectable scores. So overall 7.5. So I was really pleased for him, and I was very proud. And he's going off to study at a UK university. He can choose a range of different universities, and he doesn't need to do one of these preparation courses or a preparation year. So the higher the grade you get as a student in IELTS, the better options you have, but the lower the score, the more sort of support there is at university, so that you can push your linguistic ability to a greater level. So most students that I'm teaching now online privately are having IELTS preparation classes. Predominantly speaking and writing is the areas where they need to focus on. I've found that the passive skills, the reading, the listening, students are very good at that. But when it comes down to the productive skills, the speaking and the writing, that's where things need to be focused on. And when it comes down to writing, the approach that I take when it comes down to writing is I want to try and get some sort of I want to ascertain the written ability of a student. Anyway, we've got Victor here. Hello, Victor. Welcome back. We've got Victor here. Thank you, Victor, for joining us today. It'd be great. If you've got any questions whatsoever, feel free to put in the chat. I'm currently chatting about IELTS. Let's continue. So when it comes down to writing, this is where I try and focus a lot. And the one thing that I try and improve upon is trying to get some sense of what a student's writing ability is. So I tell students, here's a part 1 and a part 2 writing. Both elements are very different in a sense. Part 1 is, if I remember correctly, one of the parts is like an essay style or report style writing, and another part is more summarizing data or information or a process or that sort of thing. And I want to try and see where their strength lies in, are they able to write a sort of essay or a logical structure, or is their strength mainly focused on how to write like process instruction, or summarizing data and pulling out the information from some graph or that sort of thing? Where does their strength lie, and what focus do I need to work on, and what's their weaknesses? So I try and get some writing from them at the beginning of the course, and this helps me determine where I need to work on with the student. What's great is once you have some writing from the student, you can actually sit down with them and give them some general tips and advice. And the biggest tips that I give students is to paragraph their writing. Say for example, the book nearest to me is a poetry book by Yeats, and if I get if you get a poem which is just a block of text, it's not really that comprehensive, but it's also very important for students to paragraph their writing which has a sort of structure. And so what I tend to say, especially for one of the parts of the IELTS, is to structure it so you have a brief introduction, introducing the reader to what the topic is, what you're looking at, or what the theme is. And so it could be, okay, a graph about the consumption of junk food over a period of time. So I say, okay, let's make a paragraph about introducing the topic, and let's have a general statement. So, you could create a general statement about junk food, such as, the consumption of junk food has become more and more popular among a certain amount of population. It's a very general statement, but it introduces the main theme into the topic. And then I say, okay, try and summarize very briefly what the graph illustrates, for example. So you could say, okay, the graph looks at, and then either the dates and the topic, the consumption of junk food over between 2000 and 2010 or something like that. And then I say, okay, final sentence, just try and guide the reader into the next element of, in this essay or in this writing, we're just going to have a look at blah, 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 blah. Yeah. And that's where I work on. And then it's like paragraph next, and then a brief conclusion or sort of a thought or idea, your own opinion. And that's what I found most beneficial, and that's where students are able to get, the 7s or 7.5 for their writing, because that's the most difficult area. Obviously, there's vocabulary and that sort of thing, which is important. Anyway, now I've got a really interesting question here. Victor says, you're a Portuguese teacher. I'm a Portuguese tutor, but it's always good to hear how other tutors plan their classes. I agree. I think one thing that we can all learn, regardless of the language we're teaching, is learning how others plan and deliver their lessons. And I think I would be fascinated to learn how other language tutors deliver their classes. I would love to do a Korean language course, or some language on Preply or Preply, and seeing how another tutor would teach me, and what they would do. Would they do a translation approach, or would they communicate with me with the target language? That would be really fascinating. But I completely agree that you can certainly learn a lot more from other tutors, and if you have the opportunity to observe other classes, to observe other teachers, seeing how they teach a particular class, then this would definitely benefit you as a teacher. It would inform you of best practice. And one thing that I used to try and push for in the private language school that I used to work with a couple of years back was for these new teachers that join the school. They've just completed a CELTA course or a Trinity Cert TESOL course, like the introductory course that most language teachers need to, most English language teachers need to have before going into the classroom. I would always urge the higher, my seniors to say, okay, we really need to push for observations, because these teachers that have just completed their introductory 4-week course or 6-week, 8-week, 12-week part-time course, they need guidance, they need support. And I remember being, a teacher nearly 16 years ago when I first started, but also when I first started teaching back in the UK, I was just said, okay, this is your lesson, this is your class, this is your students, this is a course book, good luck. And I didn't want my young learner teachers, the teachers that are teaching young learners, to have that experience of going, right, there's your classroom, best of luck. Because it doesn't necessarily foster an environment of support. There's that sort of distance, that growing distance between, okay, my responsibility as a manager is just to timetable teachers, but no, your responsibility as a manager is to ensure that teachers are comfortable, confident, and able to deliver the best possible class. So I always pushed for observations, like teacher to teacher observations, peer observations, not just me going in and saying, okay, this is where you can improve upon, but that's one element that you could look at. So one thing that I would go and do within 2 weeks of a new teacher starting is I would go and observe their class in a young learner class, and I say, okay, this was great, this was fantastic, well done with this. You just need to work on these certain areas, and go and observe this teacher to see how that teacher delivers that sort of those certain areas within the classroom. And that's hugely more beneficial than going, there's your class, I'll observe you, okay, tick boxing, yeah, you're all right, next. So that was very important sort of professional development that I tried to foster within this private language school, and it did. It worked. It was possible. We had similar to what we have in the UK, like Ofsted, like inspections from affiliated bodies that are recognised within the English language teaching field. They would come in and see what sort of development had been implemented, and what sort of information was possible, and that sort of thing. And this area that I worked on was recognised by the British Council. I was very proud that I managed to improve that element of language delivery for young learners. So that's it. Right, I've got another question here. Sorry, Victor, if I went on a little bit there, but I kind of, I suppose that's one way of, learning from other teachers. We can always learn from other teachers, regardless of how long they've been teaching or how short. We can all learn from each other, and that's the best thing about it. Okay, right. Okay, Anna Sadelby says, how can I, as a teacher, become qualified to help students get prepared for IELTS? Is there some kind of qualification I can take? Thank you. This is a really interesting question. There's not necessarily a qualification that can that you can say, okay, I'm qualified to teach IELTS now. It's an exam. And the best way to learn about the IELTS and to become comfortable about preparing students for IELTS is to learn about the exam itself. Now, there is a website which I'll try and find, and here we go. I think I've found it. Bear with me. There's a range of different courses online. I'm just trying to help you at the moment, but bear with me. Right. Almost there. Almost there. Okay, right. Let me go over to the website. So, one really good website that helps with learning more about the IELTS is FutureLearn. And FutureLearn is a great website. They offer free courses as well as paid courses. You can sign up and join FutureLearn, and you can learn a bit more about the IELTS. Okay, so you can have a look here. There's IELTS courses. There's like a range of different things here. Understanding IELTS, it's a 12-week course. There's 4 courses. It's introductory. This would be a good guide on what to expect in the IELTS, and as a teacher it's always important to try and understand what the students are going to encounter with an exam. I've never been an IELTS examiner, but I recognise what is expected within the IELTS exam and what the students will encounter during the exam. So I've been able to build up that knowledge, and essentially all you have to do, Anna Sadelby, is to acquire that knowledge. There's no qualification. Well, I guess there is a qualification or a course that you could do about understanding IELTS, and a range of other courses here, understanding reading, speaking, writing, listening. So these 4 courses are useful. So let's go into the main part. Let's find out more about understanding IELTS. Now this one is a free 7-day trial. The cost is £36 per month. What you do get though, and if I do go back, about what I mentioned, you do get a qualification. You get a certificate, not a qualification, but you get a certificate to say you've completed that course. So maybe this course here on FutureLearn may help you with understanding the IELTS, how to prepare, strategies for preparation. And you can see here, the speaking, reading, writing and listening, key skills that you learn. But it's mainly aimed for people who are, students who are preparing for the IELTS. And this course here is very useful. You can see here what's included. Okay. The other course here, Inside IELTS, Preparing for the Test with the Experts. 3 hours a week. Let's have a look at the overview. You've got video. Is there a cost? I don't see a cost. So this course here might be free. So you have to spend a little bit of time on FutureLearn, and you'll discover that sort of thing. So let me put this in the chat. Bear with me. So have a look, Anna Sadelby, with regards to FutureLearn and courses on there, because you may find a particular course that might help you understand a bit more about the IELTS, and there's nothing stopping you preparing students to do the IELTS. I don't have any qualifications to say I can teach IELTS. All I have is just my experience and my knowledge of the exam. So build up that knowledge of the exam, build up an understanding of the different bands, the marks, the grades, and try to understand how those grades connect with the universities that are offering undergraduate, postgraduate courses for international students, and what is expected at different universities. So different universities will have different expectations, essentially. Anyway, I hope that kind of helped. Bear with me, I've got a bit of a cold at the moment. There we go. Despite me getting over my cold, I've still got the lingering elements of my cold at the minute. So bear with me. Right, Victor, he says, in my case, I need to work more with culture and historical topics since they're deeply related with the Brazilian Portuguese. Of course, this is also necessary for teaching English. And then you go on, Victor, let's have a look. But Anglo-Saxon culture, it's already very well known in general. I suppose so, to an extent. And then, we're always hearing English and TV, music, etc., but it's not the same with Portuguese. I think, English, to some degree, is more recognized, I guess, around the world with TV, music, culture, the arts, etc. And it's also a lingua franca. It's a bear with me. I think I saw someone knock on my door. Never mind. So English is a lingua franca, and it's used as a tool to communicate between non-English speakers to non-English speakers. So it's used between businesses whose languages are different. You know, you could have a Chinese speaker and a Japanese speaker, but they both agree to communicate in English. And they may understand each other better if they communicate in English. So there's a certain element that's right here. When it comes to English, yes, it's more well known. But unfortunately, the downside to that is that it doesn't necessarily correlate to other languages having greater exposure. You know, and it's got a sort of, what would I say, sort of, not entirely sure what to say, but this sort of principle that English is better, unspokenly, tacitly, that English is the better language to communicate in and that sort of thing. And it kind of brings down other languages down the pecking order. But things are changing, especially with Korean. Korean has become a lot more popular now through the arts, like BTS and Squid Game and that sort of thing. So these sort of things are very good. Bear with me. I've got some spam again. Let me report. There we go. Okay. Let's remove. There. Sorry. So there's certain languages that start to become popular based on things that are achieved, you know, through Netflix, through the arts and that sort of thing. And unfortunately for me, I don't necessarily know a great deal about the history of Brazil. You know, of course, I understand that Portuguese went over, but I don't necessarily know a great deal. You know, there's a famous movie about the Aboriginals in that area of the world, and the people coming over from Portugal, but I don't know a great deal. However, what people can do is they can share their cultures, share their language with those that are interested, and that's really fascinating. And the thing that we have now is that with technology, we can share a range of our experiences, arts, cultures, etc. through technology, much like I'm doing now, I suppose. Right, Edith is here. Hello, Edith. Thank you ever so much for joining. She says, I concur. FutureLearn has taught me much about IELTS teaching plus other very interesting topics too. That's great. There are many, many different courses on FutureLearn. You know, it's not just IELTS, but there's loads of subjects, loads of courses, recognized courses by universities. And for those students whose first language is not English, then you can do a course in English to improve your linguistic ability. And FutureLearn is a great opportunity there. Now, Victor, he says, have you heard about Esperanto English? Right, okay. Esperanto, I think I have. I think I went to Belgium many years ago, and they speak Flemish, I believe, French, and there's Esperanto, and obviously English they can understand to some extent. And Esperanto is a sort of language which has been made for people to communicate globally. They don't necessarily need to have the same first language, but they're able to communicate in Esperanto. I'm not entirely sure. I might be making it all up. I've got no idea. But perhaps, Victor, if you could let me know in the chat a bit more about Esperanto, it'd be really interesting to hear your side of things. So, but I'm not entirely sure about Esperanto, to be honest. Anyway, right, Edith has a really useful question. How do you correct errors during conversation? Now, when it comes down to speaking, there's a time and a place to correct students. And I go to the point of, imagine a child. If you try and get the child to do something, but you always stop them at every single point they make a mistake, they will start to lose confidence. They'll start to feel self-conscious. They will start to become a bit apprehensive about doing something. So, when it comes down to speaking, it's the same principle to some extent. And we've got error correction, which is hot error correction, like immediate error correction, and cold error correction. You delay the error correction until afterwards. And it's really up to the judgment of the teacher about when is best to correct. If it is more of a conversation, I always have a notebook, and I always make a note of any good language, because this is what we need to focus on, good language, not just poor language, but I make a note of all the language that the student has used, and then I correct the student after the conversation. So I'd say, okay, we may have spoken for 10 minutes, and I'd go, right, okay, that was great, thank you ever so much. This is what you said, this was great. This is what you said, that was really good. You said here this sort of thing. Can you think of a better way to say it in English? And, I try a self-correction technique. If the student's not sure, they don't have that vocabulary just yet, then I go, okay, in English we say it like this. So let me find an example. I was teaching my first private student from Korea the other day, and Koreans particularly are so apprehensive when it comes down to speaking, and she only booked a half an hour class. Fortunately for me, let's see. Okay, let's see. Let me share my website. Fortunately for me, with my Korean and that side of things, I was able to make myself understood or understand what the student was trying to say. So, for example, here, I start to be tired. She said, okay, that's all right. What's the better way of it? I start to get tired. Yeah, so get plus adjective evokes a sort of progression in that sense. And I, after speaking, going back to Edith's question, how do I correct? When it's just interaction like that, then I correct afterwards. Do you prefer to spend time with your friends or family? If I spend too much time with my friends, it can be a bit draining, stressful. It depends who my friends are. We have a catch up, and then I say, okay, be careful, catch up or ketchup. Depends, be very careful with your pronunciation. And here students said all has increased, and I said, okay, it's getting quite expensive in Korea now. So these sort of things are very important, I find. And also making students aware of things that are important. Bear with me, I've got some more spam. I don't know why these things are here. Let's see. There we go. Right, so it depends on the time and place when it comes down to error correction. Now, when it's immediate error correction, this is when I want students to focus on particular functional language. If there's a breakdown in communication, I immediately go in and say, okay, what are you trying to say? And I give them that correction straight away, and then okay, try again. But I prefer the cold error correction or the self-correction after speaking, after communicating, and I think students prefer that as well, because here they can see, okay, I've done really well here, I need a bit of improvement here, but yeah, this one was all right, that one was okay, and that sort of thing. So that's what I find quite useful when it comes down to that sort of thing. Right, let's have a look. Victor, he said about Esperanto. It's an international language with very simple grammar. Okay. I'll have to try and learn Esperanto. I guess I've got no idea how to say hello or anything else like that. I thought it was an international language, and I'm glad it is. Or my assumption was correct. But yeah, and then Victor says it was created to be a second global language. I wonder whether it's been successful or recognised as a second language or second global language for individuals, and whether it's been used successfully. I guess it has been, but again, I know very little about Esperanto, and it would be interesting to see how this has impacted on communications between cultures and languages and that sort of thing. But I guess English is the key international language at the moment, with things evolving and with maybe other languages becoming more prominent in the future. I guess that would be good to see. Right, Elfinzilla, hello, welcome. Thank you for joining me. I like your image, your thumbnail. That looks very good. Who is it? Mike Tyson? I don't know. It's not Mike Tyson. It was a wrestler. I don't know. Anyway, it's a really funny image. I like that. Okay, right. So Edith, hot and cold error correction. Interesting. Great tips. Thanks so much. When do you have such sessions? I'm a first timer. Do you mean the sessions like the live sessions, the live streams, or do you mean, I'm not entirely sure what, if you could let me know what you mean by such sessions, that'll be helpful. I'll be quite keen to know. But if you mean a live stream, I have a weekly live stream every Monday at 1 p.m. Where I share my experiences, my thoughts, my ideas, and that sort of thing. And I also share websites and that side of things, and also read a poem or a selected poem from a book, which I do at the end of our live session. Both. Okay. Right. When do you have such sessions? I'm first timer. Okay. Other things that I get involved with regards to this channel is I do, and I have not done, I'm feeling really guilty now. I've not actually made a particular video about any particular topics. I've been quite busy, with my private classes. But one thing that I try and do is my live streams, unless, like last week, I got a cold and decided to have a bit of a break rather than burning out. So that's I try and cover a range of different topics in this live stream and with my private videos and sharing those videos and that side of things. Right, the next thing that I wanted to look at was websites for IELTS and things that you could share with both your students and things that you could use to help you with regards to preparing your lessons. Okay, so if we go to our first website, and I've got 7 websites that I'm going to share with you. Okay. So let's get started. Right. When it comes down to IELTS, there's actually so much material online which helps me prepare. Particularly for writing, all I do is I just end up using suggested writing things, and I'll show you in a moment what I end up doing. But the first website that I would recommend is IELTS Buddy. And IELTS Buddy is a great website where you can see the person who runs this site looks at writing, speaking, reading, listening. There's lessons, there's tests, there's a blog. There's different lessons and tasks. There's a practice test for students to do. I try and get students to complete this practice test so that they can do it in their own time. Vocabulary, idioms, collocations, phrasal verbs, etc., etc. There's so much on this website that it's a huge resource. And one thing that I would end up doing is saying, okay, let's have a look at sample. You've got sample writing, sample speaking, letters, topics. Okay, let's see. Reading, writing. Let's go for writing. Where is it? Oh, it's at the top again. There we go. Okay, so we've got different tasks. Task 1, Task 2, model essays with feedback, model graphs with feedback, writing practice tests, writing tips, IELTS grammar, IELTS general training, and then a variety of things. And this is what I end up doing. I end up going, right, okay, that's that. I go and I click copy, and then I'm able to copy this. I put it into a Word document, send it out to the student, say, go and please write about this graph, the task 1, and then, okay, here's task 2, academic style task 2. Do the same, copy and put into a Word document, send it to the student. Student sends these back, as I mentioned at the beginning of the lesson. I've got then some idea of what level their writing is. Okay. Okay, right. Now, next we have IELTS Liz, and I really like this website. I really do, because you've got speaking and a range of speaking topics. You've got speaking part 1 topics, part 2 topics, part 3 topics. There's so much in range of sources. I definitely recommend this website out for preparing. There's writing task 1 and 2. So here we go, writing task 1, practice, tips, etc., etc. So much. So definitely have a look at IELTS Liz. Brilliant website. Always use it, always referring to her material, sending it to students, and it's a great resource for me as a teacher, IELTS teacher. Next one, IELTS Mentor. And don't worry, I'll be happy to put all the links in the chat after this live stream. So the third website I'd recommend is IELTS Mentor, and you can use this again. There's a variety of sample papers and everything else like that. Listening, is there a listening one? Yep, there's listening samples 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, up to 10. Speaking parts 1 and 3, academic reading, writing task 1 and 2. If you go to writing task 1, there's 2 writing ones. If you go to the other websites, there's a variety of other resources as well, like IELTS Liz and also IELTS Buddy. Fourth website, IELTS Simon, very simple website. There's a video course, how to teach IELTS. So, for example, there was a person who asked in the chat, how do I become qualified to teach IELTS? Well, have a look at this. There's a sort of how to teach resource. Costs £65. You can have a look. Let's click here for the index page. Nope, can't be reached. Forget it. But IELTS Simon has a variety of different tasks and preparation for students. Next one, IELTS Advantage. There's resources available, writing and what have you, down here. So this one's really, really good, and very helpful for students and that side of things. Next is Mini IELTS, and this one I really get students to do their mock listening and reading with this, so that they can get an idea of what to expect. Okay, there's online learning, mobile, etc., etc. But there's not really a great detail apart from listening and reading. There's no speaking or writing preparation. That's when the students have to come to me and they have to have their writing. And then the final one I would recommend is Lingua House. You could go and type in IELTS, for example, and let's go down, and we've got IELTS speaking, loads of speaking, and you've got audio, video, and loads of other things. This is good, but if we go back, say for example, let's view all the lessons. You can find other resources related to the writing and the reading elements of the IELTS as well, based on the worksheets. So if I download, for example, one of the worksheets, you'll see the sort of resources that are available. I always refer to Lingua House for my lesson planning, and so here, once it's downloaded, you can see there's conversation questions, there's understanding the introduction and putting the introduction in order. It's all been mixed up, so there's a reading activity here. Going down a little bit more, you have to listen and then find a word or a phrase from the introduction. Vocabulary, watching a video, comprehension. And so this comprehension is very similar to like the listening element of the IELTS test, A, B or C. Yeah. Another element is, true, false, not given, which is sometimes included. But one thing that I like at the end of these lessons is this sort of write-in activity. I find this hugely beneficial for students. They can start to write in response to this, and it really prepares them for the IELTS, and that's what I end up doing. So those are all my websites. So having a look again, we have IELTS Buddy, IELTS Liz, we also have IELTS Mentor, IELTS Simon, IELTS Advantage, Mini IELTS, and Lingua House. And as I mentioned before, I'll put all the links in the comments after this live stream, so you've got access to all the same websites as well. But those are 7 websites that I would recommend for teachers who want to develop the resources to develop a variety of things as well. Now, let's go back to our chat. Let's catch up. So Edith says, you enjoy the Q&A really. So me too. I find it really interactive. I'm able to engage with people who come along, and I really appreciate how many questions have been asked today. It's really good. I'm really pleased with that. Donato Degate, hello, welcome from Venezuela. I already posted my profile on Preply, but I'm still waiting. When did you post your profile on Preply? And has it been a day, 2 days, 1 week, 3 weeks? Let me know. And if there's anything that you're waiting for, I would always recommend that you get in touch with support. And if you're not sure where it is, on the bottom right hand corner of the website you have the support button, and you click and say talk to support, and they'll be able to help you. But yeah, welcome. I hope you're finding Preply enjoyable, and it'll be interesting to see when your profile comes live. Victor says, I think that Esperanto is main created language at this point, and the one that have more speakers around the world. It was created by a linguist, and people with very different backgrounds can communicate very well without needing to study a lot of complex language. And goodbye, Victor. Thank you ever so much for joining. I really appreciate all the input and all the advice, and I'm going to have a look at Esperanto and see what it is. I'm really curious now. You've piqued my curiosity, and I'm gonna go in there and have a look and see if I can learn how to communicate, how to say hello and goodbye in Esperanto, and hopefully, let's see. Why not? I've got plenty time. Right, any final questions before we finish off? Because I've got my poetry book that I'm going to read. I'm going to refer to one poem by Yeats. And I'm not sure which one. Let's see. I don't know. Any preferences in Yeats's poetry? All right. Well, let's go for a random one and see. Okay, well, we've got one called Reprisals. So, not sure if you can see that. It goes on here, and it goes on to the next page, and I wonder how long it is. Oh, not long. Okay. Right. So this was published in 1948. After the Second World War, so have a think about the timing when it was written and published, and also the main embodiment of how British people were feeling during that time. So Yeats, Reprisals. Okay. Some 19 German planes, they say, you had brought down before you died. We called it a good death. Today, can ghost or man be satisfied? Although your last exciting year outweighed all other years, you said, though battle joy may be so dear, a memory even to the dead. It chases other thought away, yet rise from your Italian tomb, flit to Kiltartan cross and stay, till certain second thoughts have come. Upon the cause you served, that we imagined such a fine affair, half drunk or whole mad soldiery are murdering your tenants there. Men that revere your father yet are shot at on the open plain, where may new married women sit and suckle children now. Armed men may murder them in passing, by nor law nor parliament take heed, then close your ears with dust and lie among the other cheated dead. Well, okay. It's a rather bleak poem. Not exactly good, but it really symbolises that moment in time after the Second World War. I'm going to finish off with one more poem. I want to try and find one that symbolises Yeats. And something a bit more positive, I hope. And we'll see. Okay. All right, so I've got another poem here. Last one for the day. And it's called He Wishes for the Cloths of Heaven. Had I the heavens embroidered cloths, and wrought with golden and silver light, the blue and the dim and the dark cloths of night and light and half-light, I would spread the cloths under your feet, but I, being poor, have only my dreams. I've spread my dreams under your feet. Tread softly, because you tread on my dreams. That's beautiful. It's a beautiful poem. Beautiful, beautiful. Right, okay, so let's finish off then. Anything else in the chat? How do you work on a written text with a student? This is quite a long subject. I'll be quite happy to cover this in next week's live stream. So Edith, please feel free to join next week. And please remind me of your question. It would be great. It's a really useful question, yeah. Eric says, nice poem again. Thank you ever so much, Eric, for joining. Really appreciate it. We've got Karen Rudd. Hello, Karen. Thank you ever so much. How do you handle students who constantly reschedule their lessons on Preply? And I've been teaching English on Preply since July the 7th. The excessive amount of rescheduling on Preply, how do you handle it? Right, very briefly, you have to be as flexible as possible. Yes, there's going to be more students rescheduling because everybody has their own lives. You're going to be rescheduling. You've got to have this sort of common understanding that students have their own lives, you have your own lives, and that sort of thing, and you have to be you have to give them sort of the benefit of the doubt and that sort of thing. But I'm maybe please ask this question again next week, because we're going to finish off the live stream now, and I'll be quite happy to review this. So please come again, Karen, next week, 1 p.m. UK time. And I'll be happy to cover any questions that you have, particularly this one, because this is quite an interesting question to look at. But for everybody else, thank you ever so much. Have a lovely, lovely week. Thank you ever so much for everybody coming in, asking all these great questions. It's so nice to have so many people coming in, and it's great. It's really... yeah, I feel good. Right, I'll see everybody soon next week in our next live stream. Have a lovely week, have a lovely weekend, and take care, stay safe, particularly in this current climate, and happy teaching, yeah? Bye-bye.